To everybody who's been liking the videos so far, we thank y'all. You guys liking the videos has kind of helped us start to grow the channel even more, so we appreciate it. To those who have not, please, we ask you, hit the like button before you even watch this video. It helps us grow the channel, helps people learn about us, and allows us to make more great content like this. So that's all we got. Thank you for helping us grow this channel. Hit the like button right now, and on with the show.
We got you stuck off the realness, the most infamous, you heard of us. Official podcast murderers, the show comes equipped with viewpoints to share. Grown man ideas for all those who care and wanna grow, so go ahead and download. Every single week with a brand new episode. You're not alone in this world, cousin, so we share information and honest discussion and keep repping a culture like we supposed to. They spread gossip, but they never come close to. I can hear it inside their tone. They talk about the industry, but never left their home. You get laced up with bullet points and such, plus empowering topics that they never would touch. You can put your whole network against the team, but Super Duty Tough Work's the MVP. Most valuable podcast on MP3. Priceless info, but all of it's free. So take these words home and think them through. Super Duty Tough Work is coming at you. You are now listening to Super Duty Tough Work with your host, Blueprint. Raw and uncut, adult conversations. No shucking, no jiving, and no bullshit.
Yeah. Once again, folks, we are back. Super Duty Tough Work, the most infamous podcast on planet Earth. This week, we have a special guest with us. I told y'all we was doing more interviews. This is an interview, and this interview is with Rocom. He is an artist. He is a graphic designer. He is also, more recently, a toy maker. And he does all those things extremely well. And he recently ran a really dope Kickstarter campaign for his last project. And today we want to have him on to kind of talk about his journey and what got him there. And then at the end, we want to talk about like what some of the things that have helped him run these successful Kickstarter campaigns, because crowdfunding is something a lot of people are interested in, but a lot of people are kind of nervous about it. And so, we have him on here today. And, I hope you guys dig this conversation. And I know there will be a lot of jewels. And so, Rocom, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
exciting.
for being here. Yeah, man. So let's talk about let's start with your graphic design career, because that's kind of where I first kind of got in contact with you. You've done a gang of graphic design for me, from t-shirt design. You've done book covers. How did you get into graphic design?
My story career wise is a bit interesting. In college, just growing up South Asian, like there's always this pressure to be something, when you're growing up, when you're like first generation. So, I feel like actually we have that similar background where I have a computer engineering degree. And so I always had this minor in digital arts though. And so right out of college, I jumped into aerospace. Like I had a job where I was working on like unmanned aerial vehicle stuff, just crazy kind of engineering projects for government work and whatnot. And so immediately I realized how miserable I was. Like, and within that job, I constantly look for the creative things to do. Like, if we're testing something, I'm like, oh, let me film something and make you guys a video to like document this stuff. So I'd be in the editing room, adding music to it, just getting into that. And it just showed me how removed I was from the actual work, So about 6 months into doing work like that, I think all my managers, they knew, they're like, dude, you're good at this stuff. This is what you should do. But money had run out on the contract that we were working on. So that pushed me out of that job anyways. So falling out of that, it was this moment where, thank goodness that didn't happen 3 years out or something, to where I would then went to these different companies that I'd been doing engineering work for. And I'm like, hey, I could do graphic design work, all that stuff I learned in my minor at school. I finally got to flex it in engineering places first. So I would do brochures, any print matter stuff, I'd design that. And so that got me kicked off first, but I knew that to do really creative stuff, I wanted to branch that out into not just, you know, the more fun stuff is maybe sports, different sports things, and like or toys, where it ended up being, you know. But if you're just sticking with engineering, there's only so many times you could do like a logo with an airplane or something. And so what I found was there's these temp agencies that are only creative based. Like usually a temp agency is like, oh, we need a new secretary, call them in. Yo, we need someone that can file all this stuff. But they have agencies like that that are for people that make music, edit video, create artwork, like all that. So I joined a creative temp agency, and they know all the companies. So they know Hurley, all these surf brands, skate brands, and like they have all these contacts. So those companies hit them up and say, we need someone that does logos. And then they'll call me and say, hey, we got this, see if it's a fit or not. So doing that was great because I got to do a lot of new cool work that was in different industries. And then that helped build my portfolio. But coming straight out the gate, it's like you don't have a portfolio really because you haven't done the work, right? And I think for most people looking for jobs and creative careers, that's the tough part. Like you went to school, you didn't get any like serious work done for brands. So it's like, how am I going to break in? Because I'm such fresh fish. Either it'll be I'm going to get underpaid or I'm undervalued or something. So what I realized visually, this was the trick for me, was when a manager looks at a portfolio or your website, they're just looking for they want to be wowed, right? They just want like dope visuals and graphics and like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And for me back then, what I did was I went into stock photography. I looked for the dopest photos I could find. I paired them with text and like did design work to them, but I knew that a good photo goes a long way. So like my portfolio became a spec portfolio of like all these dope images that I didn't take, but I designed with them because I added text and graphics to them. And so when someone opened that, it's not work that went to any company, but they're just like, whoa, this stuff looks dope, you know? And then that got my foot in the door.
That's dope.
It's kind of a fake it till you make it type scenario, but it's crazy how much you'll learn on the job. Like anyone will say it, you know. Once you go through it, you learn it.
So when you were going through that phase with the temp agency, were you still doing engineering work, or were you were like, I'm out of engineering work for a while, I'm just gonna focus on the graphic design?
I was out completely. Like once I left that one job, I was like, I know I don't want to do this anymore. So it made it difficult in that now I was fresh and like, who wants a designer that just came from like coding and like doing computer engineering? But building that kind of faux portfolio, and it's a normal thing you could do. You just call it spec artwork. Like this was just artwork that I would design for a brand, even though it wasn't used, you know? It's how people can put things into their portfolio that maybe Mattel hit them up for He-Man stuff, and then they designed things. They didn't accept it, but you still did the work, so you can show that off to people.
So what was the adjustment like going from, and this is something that I kind of had to go through, from being like a salaried employee to now going to being basically like an independent contractor? How was that adjustment period?
It was painful. Obviously, the first thing that's great is obviously like you get to make, as a contracted employee, you're not getting health benefits, all that stuff that you have to pay out of pocket when you're not with some company. That's what hurts. But what's cool is the other side of it is that your pay rate is so much higher. So being able to do that, it's like, okay, you know, at a salary job, let's say it was, it would add up to maybe $20 to $30 an hour. But now as a contractor, you could charge 50, 60 and it makes sense. So in that case, it helps, but it depends on how many hours you're putting in and whatnot. the first job I landed through that temp agency, where it was a big company that usually these people hire you for a week max or something.
Mm-hmm.
There was a company I landed where I was in there 40 hours a week, and it would go on for months.
Wow.
But I'm charging that crazy $60 an hour rate.
Yeah.
And dude, that's actually how I started my first chunk of savings. Like, it was this company that would refuse to like hire on someone. I think in the end, it ended up being a little shady, you know?
Yeah.
But it worked for me. I was fine with it. I actually built a savings just because of that job.
That's amazing.
So I lucked out that way. But on the other hand, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big adjustment. That was, for me, that was the biggest thing. Like, okay, what do you mean there's just like no check coming at the beginning of the month? Like, what do I do between I have to go out here and actually make money, or I will kind of starve. Like, this is not cool.
Yeah. And balancing that, where, you know, it's what they call feast or famine, right?
Yes.
It's like you're either swimming in it or it's just dry and you're frightened. You're calling everyone you know.
Yeah. But it wakes up something in you too, though, that for me, I don't know if it was similar to you, but like, you know, I always had jobs, but like I never was self-employed until that moment. And it took a little bit of adjustment. But then once I adjusted, it was like, oh, wow, this is actually such a challenge that this, aside from the art, is awakening something in me that I didn't know was really there.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean like the business side of it?
Yeah, just the initiative you have to not go back to work, you know?
Just structure your life to where you become the business instead of needing a business to accept you. I remember hearing someone say, you know, either work on your own dreams or someone will pay you to work on theirs.
Yeah, that's a heavy quote.
And I sat and I was like, oh man, any job anyone's had, you're fulfilling someone else's dream. It's like,
I
think that immediately made me want to do my own stuff. Or putting hours in some other guy's bank, you know?
Let's talk. So you said you studied some graphic design in college, but you didn't go directly into that. So I'm imagining, did you have to do any work to kind of sharpen your graphic design skills to work professionally? And if so, how were you learning back then?
So that you know, I mean, I went into college. I left college in 2004. Mm-hmm. So in general, digital arts and like those things, even like gaming courses and stuff, they're non-existent. I think they just like may have dipped a toe into that in the colleges. Now you go, most colleges have like gaming places or digital art and stuff. So it was so fresh back then, you know. I mean, this was like right before MySpace or something. You know? So Photoshop and Illustrator, they were really they were scary at first because you know, it's so many buttons in an application and whatnot. And so I learned some good things in those few courses. It was only a year of work that I had. So that's what was even scarier, is like I build this portfolio, you know, I land that first job, and now they're like, hey, lay out a magazine. So it's like, I've never done that before. Luckily YouTube was just it was pretty big for anything. So I would Google search in YouTube anything I didn't know, and immediately in 5 minutes I was implementing that into a design, because people that love art or love visuals, you know what you want to see. You know, you know when you look in a magazine how stuff feels, how the numbers are laid out and everything. So the experience of it is all in your head and there. It's just a matter of like, how do I make that do that on the screen? And so it's really just a search away. So anything how I got to where I'm now, where I know all of it, is literally just piecemealing all this research I did on the job. I remember a magazine editor told me, all right, let's get some pull quotes going here on this page. And I'm like, what's a pull quote? I had no idea what that meant. But
You're like, sure, no problem.
We got to put those in there.
You're
so
right.
I search it. And a pull quote is, for anyone that doesn't know, in a magazine, when you're reading it, you'll see those big quotes where they're in fat letters, where it's part of the main article. And so it's like highlighted. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just did a couple clicks. I'm like, okay, now this is how you make some text have the main body text flow around it. Cause you know how they punch in kind of, and then so it's all there. It's all very easy. It's just a matter of like, where do you click to do that?
Yeah.
So, I encourage anyone that wants to get into graphic design or is worried about it or frightened by it. You don't have to take any course or anything. Just like get the software and just start YouTube searching or thinking of what you want to do. And there's someone out there that'll tell you.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to start talking about the toy part, like you learning toys, because that's something that's very distinctive. And, you've been doing a lot of dope things. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. While I got y'all here, let me remind y'all about a few things we got back in stock on weightless.net right now. First being the King No Crown movie DVD. This is a double DVD, deluxe DVD. One DVD, first DVD is the movie. Second is all the extra features. That's back in stock. It was out of stock for a while. This is my first movie. Came out in 2017. Free version, which is the clean versions on YouTube. This is the unedited version, dirty version, I guess, if you will, which is available now on weightless.net. Other thing, 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop Artists. This book came out about 2 to 3 months ago. So my latest book. This book breaks down the habits, the traits that you see across some of the dopest artists in hip hop. This is my 4th book. And so far, it's been my most successful, amazing feedback on it. This book is here. If you missed out the first time, it's like $14 on the store plus shipping. We got deals that come with bookmarks with it, free stickers, autographs, all of that stuff on weightless.net. That's in stock. Other thing, more importantly, we've reissued the Two-Headed Monster vinyl. This vinyl is it was red on the first pressing. This next pressing is yellow. This is just now hitting. So if you haven't got it, head to weightless.net and get it. Sold out the first time in like 2-3 months. It's doing pretty good this time, but get it if you missed it the first time. It's on yellow vinyl. Comes with a download card. Also being restocked, has been reimpressed, is the Two-Headed Monster vinyl right here. Clear vinyl. Two-Headed Monster album. Same thing. It sold out pretty fast in 2018. So we just repressed it here. But you can get that at weightless.net. And there's prices, special bundle prices for all of this stuff. Now, what's already been in stock, which you probably already have if you don't, just so you don't know, King No Crown. King No Crown vinyl. It's red vinyl. King No Crown is double vinyl though. 2 pieces of double vinyl. But yeah, that's here. That's the record with Persevere on it. Dope record. Great Ideas Never Dies on this record as well. But that's here. And then last thing, which some of you may have or may not, is Vigilante Genesis EP, which is me and A$AP Rock on the production. This is available on vinyl too. But this one is blue vinyl. I ain't gonna open this up just to show you blue vinyl. Trust me, it's blue. But this comes with all the vocal tracks on one side and the instrumentals, which are produced by A$AP Rock on the B side. So that's it. If you got this stuff already, thank you. If you don't, if you want to support, go to weightless.net. Pick up your copy of any of these things on vinyl, any of the books, the movie. We have apparel as well. And thank you for your time. See y'all soon. Peace. All right, folks, we back. Blueprint, Super Duty Tough Work, special guest, Rocom Toys, graphic designer, artist, toy designer. We want to talk about these toys real quick because your toys are crazy. They're really crazy. It's really dope. As a kid who grew up on G.I. Joe, Transformers, GoBots, all of that stuff, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for action figures and toys, like a lot of stuff you're doing. And so my first question is like, okay, you're doing art, you're doing graphic design. And what was it that sparked your interest in toys and pivoting in that direction?
Firstly, I totally agree that there's this nostalgic soft spot for action figures. I feel like there's this age group that I don't think Gen Z's anywhere in this.
Yeah.
They'll look at us old guys like, you guys are weird. What is this toy thing? Why are they so special? And we grew up during this time where like our cartoons every Saturday, like our mornings, they're just built on these properties that had toys.
Yes.
And so they're just like this physical manifestation of just childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that, now for kids, it's probably like a manifestation of like a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So it's something I always loved. Like I loved having a collection. I loved looking for ones or really having an affinity towards certain characters, like, oh, Optimus is my guy. I need all the Optimus toys or whatever. And also as a kid, it's like, you're lucky if you get one, if your parents found one or unless you had that nice childhood where they bought you all of it,
Yeah, which rarely happened, never happened. One
right.
at a time.
You always had your few guys, or you had a friend that did that. You go to their house and play with all their stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like even that builds this thing inside us when it's like, oh, I have some expendable income. I'm gonna start buying all this stuff because like I can do it. And they're doing it now. If you look at Targets, I mean, He-Man is back on the shelf. Like, if you look at the latest Transformers line, it's just like all classic 1980s, 1984, 1986 designs,
Yeah.
So having that in me, I always loved it. I always cared about it, but I never in my mind did I think I could do that. Like I could make that. Toy design is something that it's my friend told me once, he's like, dude, you have the job that people in movies have. It's like one of those jobs that sounds fake,
it really
toy
does.
Designer. It's like no one's really a toy designer in real life. It's like in a movie. And so I had an opportunity when I was at that creative temp agency. They got me a job at Razor. So Razor is that company that does scooters, the aluminum folding scooter that was huge in 2000. So they're still ongoing and huge. That's actually my day job. I'm art director over there. Okay. So I do ride-on goods and stuff. But when I first joined up with them, with their design and development team, they were working with toys and getting into the toy game. And so just as a graphic designer working there, I got pulled into that department and they just asked me one question. They're like, can you draw? And oddly enough, I was like, yeah, actually, I love drawing. Like I could definitely draw. And that's all they needed to know. So immediately, like I'd start sketching ideas for like toy lines that they were going to try and like jump into. Most of it didn't really get anywhere, but it got me started on that type of thinking of like, oh, toys are really, it's just a matter of like a concept of what you want to make. You have to create that in 3D somehow. It's going to be either a sculpture or something someone sculpts in 3D in the computer. That is sent off to get a mold made out of, and then you pour plastic into the mold and you have your toy. So once you know the steps and process, it's like, oh, this can all be done. It's all like very achievable. It's just knowing the steps of like, oh, really, is that all it is? And I think once that clicks, it's just like, why isn't everyone doing this? And it's because it's so expensive. It's like, it's so expensive. And so, but to backtrack, like me just being in graphic design, then slowly having this kernel of kind of knowing how toys are done just through working there. My friends, there's two main key characters. Kwang Lee is a close friend of mine. He's a Sofubi painter. So all the Japanese vinyl toys in general, he'll custom paint those, and he does these incredible paint jobs. So hanging out with him, he has a full paint setup in his garage. So he's constantly surrounded by vinyl toys and just like painting them. And he had a friend, Justin Ishmael. So Justin is the other character in the story where he was creative director at Mondo. So I don't know if you'd heard of that company, but Mondo does screen printed posters for movies, artist variants. So like it'll be a Jaws movie poster, but an artist rendered it and it's official poster like for Jaws. So they started doing this, and Justin had done that idea there, and the company blew up. Like now it's huge. They're doing music, like records now. They're doing collectible toys, all kinds of stuff. So he branched off. He's doing his own thing, but he would hang out with Kwang with these vinyl toys and stuff, and Justin was making his own toys. He has cool licenses like the Harryhausen license to do like Cyclops from was it from Sinbad? Forget which movie that was, but but he finds these cool licenses and he makes toys out of them. So pretty much like I'm an artist sitting here and I have these friends that are just like all in toys and they're doing all this. And I grew up with Kid Robot 2 being around so heavy during the kind of peak of like Midwest hip hop and underground hip hop. How it was like early 2000s, Kid Robot was really big. And there was this weird mesh of that culture where it was like vinyl toys and hip hop almost like kind of were always in the same spaces, you know? And so being around that and loving all that, it was weird to me that, hey, I'm an artist here, that I love drawing, but I've never had a vinyl toy. Like, why don't I do that? What's holding me back? And, you know, usually you think, oh, you need a Kid Robot. You need some big company to like develop your toy and believe in you. But it's like, I see my friends doing it. You know, they're making toys, like they're getting big licenses and they're doing toys with it. It's just so expensive. So to wrap my head around the expense was that to get a mold made for a toy, it's anywhere from like $10,000 to $15,000. Wow. So you're looking like a small car, like, you know,
down payment on a house in most states.
Yeah, depending where you live. And so that is what's so overwhelming to where it's like, oh, that's not happening. You know, a lot of people do resin toys for that reason, because it's resin you could buy yourself. You can create a mold cast and pour them. But then you have kind of this fragile piece of art that's not really a plastic toy. And for me, I really wanted that vinyl to feel like, oh, this is Japanese, you know, this is Safubi. So I needed a character. First of all, I'm like, well, what's my toy? What's my guy, you know? And a lot of Japanese vinyl stems from Godzilla. So Godzilla having these vinyl toys in Japan, that's kind of the first thing that kind of brought vinyl toys everywhere. It was all these Godzilla characters. And one that was never really looked up to was Jet Jaguar. You know, he was just like
everybody loved him.
I love him, and we love him in the States. But when that movie came out in Japan, it was just like, yo, who's this fake ass Ultraman? Like, we don't want this. But as the king, that I'm like, yo, this robot's so dope. Like, he can fly, he can like blow up big, he could shoot like lights out of his eyes and stuff. And so I always loved that character. And so I'd collect them whenever I saw Jet Jaguar, I'd buy it up. So that was my dude. And I'm like, all right, a lot of art toys, a lot of things that people do is they'll take something they love and they'll put a flip on it, right? They'll take a lot of the flip stuff I cannot stand, man. Like there'll be like a Voltron and they make it Mario from Nintendo. I'm like, who needed this? What is this toy? So I don't really believe in that as a clear path, but what I want to do is take Jet Jaguar and make an evil version of him. Like, what if this was like the bad guy version of Jet Jaguar? So I was set on Death Jaguar. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a Jet Jaguar that has like a skull face, has an axe as an arm, like just kind of do this bad, evil version of him. So I started sketching and designing and drawing. And after I had my full concept ready, I'm like, I did a Photoshop. Like, I took Jet Jaguar and I just Photoshopped all this stuff on him like a toy. And that was my creative concept. I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. Let's see if anyone cares, or if there's Jet Jaguar fans like me that might be into this. And so Kickstarter, that's where it showed up. I'd never done one before. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just pull 15 grand out. That's a lot of money on a toy, like, especially. Now, when you start talking about the Kickstarter thing, like when you say, I mean, how big of an audience did you think there would be for something like this? Did you know? Did you have any idea? I mean, because it doesn't even matter how big the audience is. It's how dope your thing is, right?
Okay, because, that's a jewel.
You know what I mean?
That's a jewel.
Like, because the toy audience is there. I mean, the Godzilla kaiju audience is there. It's like, these people can be there, and I don't know if we want to save this for the next phase. Of what we'll talk about that.
I do want to talk about, though, like, because you said you had friends who were doing it, right?
Right.
Who are on different sides of this. Now, there's no toy school, is there?
There is. There is now? There's centers of art and design. They've been around for a long time, actually. It's just in high school, they never tell us this stuff.
Yeah.
They don't tell us how many different careers you could have, especially creatively. So Otis College of Art and Design is one here in California in LA.
Okay.
But actually, I think in Columbus, you guys have like one of the biggest design schools.
Yeah, it must be CCAD, Columbus School of Art and Design.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
All of those art schools, they have a toy design department. Like you can learn toy design in all of those. So it's funny because when I found that out, it made me totally lament my college years because I'm like, I should have been in a school doing that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But I think there's something fun about the path I've taken where it's really the like, I have no right doing this stuff, but I'm going to force like the hand and just do it. So that's fun too, you know, how do you get there?
Yeah. So do people, so when you decide you want to do it, did you have to go back and learn more about toy making specifically, or have you just been like or was the experience at the job that you, or the companies you was working for, was that enough to kind of get you there?
It's funny when you collect and because I already have toy collections and I've been around this stuff forever. There's things you know about action figures or things you like that are still in your mind, you know, even though like the mold making process or things like that you may not be keen on. Just knowing your own collection and things you like, you know how you would want your toy to be. So those things kind of help dictate what you ask a sculptor to change, or like how to make an angle in an arm and stuff. And so there's definitely things that I picked up as I went, and it's all really in the sculpting process, like, and also in the mold making process. So there's definitely a difference between doing it and just like having a certain function of a toy on a job or something, you know, because you might be focused on one set. But for me, I had to be the full A to B like factory line, right? It had to be concept, turnarounds, and then the 3D models. So turnarounds are a really important part in toys. Like, let's say you have an idea that you want to do a figure of yourself, you know, in like a vinyl toy version. The first thing you know need are turnarounds, and all that is it's 4 views, sometimes 5 if you do a top. So it's front facing, side view, back, and then the other side.
Okay.
So just dead on, you know. So those are the most important things because any sculptor will ask you for those views because that gives them a spatial like experience of what I need to build in 3D. So getting used to drawing those is kind of an art that you learn in toy school that I wish I had done more of, you know, because I just had to do it on the fly and figure out. But you know, the more you connect with people that are good at what they do, you must know this just from producing so many things. You know, you've got books, shirts, vinyl, and stuff. So you seek out the people that know the things that you need done, and you kind of split up the work. So I don't know 3D modeling. Like I've never done a sculpt or anything. So I sought out someone that was just good at it from the get-go. Like, so my guy is Stefan L, and he is a sculptor for McFarlane Toys.
Okay.
And so that's his day job. So he knows sculpting like better than, you know, any of us. And so I trust him to where even if I draw something, and he hates this, but like, you know, I'll draw something and he'll look at it and be like, yo, what's this in 3D? But he figures it out, you know? And sometimes his tweaks or things he does, it just elevates the toy so much more. So it's kind of cool, like seeing something flow through. It's almost like having a producer, you know, take a song and then throw some more elements in and jazz it up. And so it's almost embarrassing for me to show my sketches and then show the 3D toy, because the toy is just like, those two are not the same.
Yeah. So are there any, I guess, online forums or anything like that for other toy designers that have popped up since you've been doing it that you may participate in? Or any communities?
No, it's I think the culture is there. So there's different people making toys for sure, but I don't think there's any place where they all really communicate with each other. I think Instagram, we see what everyone's posting, and there's definitely a community in that. I mean, there's a certain toy community that definitely led to the success of my last Kickstarter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we could talk about that.
For sure. Yeah. We'll take a quick break and then we'll be back with part 3 and we'll talk about the Kickstarter stuff.
Cool.
Be right back. While I got y'all here, I want to give you a quick reminder that my first 3 books have been repressed and are available again on waitlist.net. Book number 1, Word is Blog, Volume 1. This book is a collection of some of my best blogs and writings online, assembled into book form. Second book is Adventures in Counterculture, The Making of Adventures in Counterculture. This book is about my 2011 album titled Adventures in Counterculture. This book talks about the 4-year period that it took me to make that album, the personal and artistic changes that it took. If you're into some artistic reading, this is for you. And then the third book, which is available again, is What a Night, a book about the worst shows of my career. This book is, as it says, it's a book about the worst shows of my career, but it's actually a pretty funny book. Some stories in here are just tragic or bugged out, but overall, this book will have you cracking up. So if you need some light reading, something that will just make you laugh, and if you've ever wondered what happens on the road with artists, pick up this book. All 3 are available, $10 each. However, you can get all 3 of them for just $25 right now. If you want them signed, please put some instructions in the special instructions box and ask me to sign them, and I'll get them signed before I get them out to you. And I think they might have a checkbox for all 3 that allows you to get them signed. So that's it for now. Back to the show. We are back, folks. We are back. Super Duty Tough Work, most infamous podcast on planet Earth, here today with Rocom Toys, breaking down the toy making industry from a professional, which, you know, they're out there. They may not talk about it, but they're out there. And, we've been talking about just his process of graphic design, getting into graphic design, and then moving from that into toy design. And now we want to talk about crowdfunding, because your crowdfunding campaigns have been one of the keys to your toy line, especially as you've mentioned, just getting a mold for a toy is very expensive. And this is not stuff that people just typically wake up and do without good money. And so let's talk about you've ran 4 crowdfunding campaigns so far. Am I?
Yeah, I finished my 4th one at the end of October. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about what went differently between your first, your second, your third, your fourth. Like, okay, how have things changed between each in terms of like your approach to it? Because your most recent one, your goal was 25 and you did like 85, 90 or something like that.
I did 79.
79.
Close to 80. Yeah.
Crazy. That's beautiful.
25. Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah.
But
so you've learned something in between the first one and this one.
Yeah, I hope. It's funny. It's like, I don't know if it's the project or if it's timing. Like, yeah. But I definitely become more lean as I move forward, because all we can do when we start anything is we kind of look at what other people are doing and we kind of mimic and we copy until we find our own voice with it, right? Yeah. With any art style. So for Kickstarters, like, you see all these different packages where people are like, yo, for $1, we give you a shout out, or like $5. It's all about this breakdown tier or whatever. And so for me, I was like, okay, what's the stuff I'm going to give, So there's the vinyl toy. That's all I want to get created, right? This is why we're getting into this. Death Jaguar has to exist. Yeah. And so to get that, I think my goal was $9,000, because I think the mold for that toy was about $7,000. Okay. Then you need some money to actually produce the toys, because each unit will cost something. So my goal was 9. In the end, that one made like 10.6 or something. So got a little bit over. It was nice to have some buffer, because you always. It's funny. I have 5 points that I really want to push forward for everyone. So I don't know if I should just move through those in order.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about the. Well, you know what? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because let's talk about the 5 points that you've learned, and then we can kind of that'll explain kind of the questions that people have about each one. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So the first topic is earn the dollar. Like, that's what it is. So like, you're at Kickstarter, you need money. So how are you going to earn that dollar? Like, you're someone that has this dream, but who's going to believe in that? Like, why should anyone want the thing you want? It's a convincing game, right? So a Kickstarter page has to communicate that. Like, if your Kickstarter is an image and a paragraph and saying, yo, give me 20 G's, who's going to look at that and be like, oh, I want to give this guy my money? Yeah. You have to convince people. And so it's really about, how are you going to earn that? So I always try and put so much focus into like, here's the story. Like, this is why I want this to exist. This is where it comes from. Like, this is who it's for. So it's really breaking down, like, if it's a book, a comic, a movie, like, really, like, I try and put my whole heart into the description.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the video. There's some Kickstarters that have an image and no video.
Right.
Like, even if that video is you talking to a camera on your cell phone saying, hey, this is my dream. Like, this is what I want to build and make. And even that level of sincerity, it doesn't matter if you have this full production, if you have a cell phone, if you just have some camera, talk to the lens, and tell people your story, because that will hit someone way more than an image in a paragraph. You know what I mean?
So let's talk. But to dive a little deeper on that, you're talking about like that introductory paragraph where you're saying what this is, who it's for, and what the goal is, right? How much time are you spending with that copy right there? Like, is this, you're not rushing through that, are you? You're kind of...
No, I think it's just like you would want to explain it to a friend.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be overdone. It's just a matter of like, make sure what do you want? How do you explain that in a paragraph? And it's not even the intro paragraph. It's really that video, because people are lazy. They don't want to. They're gonna read your story, but if you hook them with that video, they're going to read every word you put in there. And that's when that breakdown's important. Yeah. So, I put so much into these Kickstarter pages. Yeah. Like, if you look at even from Death Jaguar to the recent one, which was Mighty Maniacs, like, I try and put so mumuch content on there. Like here's all the different versions of the toy and what they could look like. Yeah, I don't know. It's disheartening when I see people trying to get their stuff funded and they'll be bitching about like, yo, why'd this guy get all this money? And then I look at their page and it's like, they have one photo of a thing and they're like,
yeah,
they just put the name of it on.
Yeah, people do that.
Trust that.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit late. It comes off lazy, right?
Right.
I always was told, like, and I guess I learned this from having a web store all those years, like, the more details, the better.
Sure.
Right. Sure. Like some people when
they about that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you say, some people won't even read it, but who cares if it's there, you still got to put it there. Right.
And it's about trust, really. Like, especially with Kickstarters having so many bogus ones out there that are money games where it's like, who's this guy? Why should I give him my money? And can I trust him with my money? So another thing is making it very public of like, yo, this is my Instagram. This is my Facebook. Like, I'm a real person. Yeah. And like, if you wanted to contact me, you can. And so there is a bit of community in there where it's like, hey, these people trusted you with their dollar, at least be available to like talk to them or explain to them things. And there's plenty of people that would hit me up on Instagram and before they pitched in, they'd have a conversation with me and they'd be like, oh, okay, like, I like you, or like, I believe in this, it's real. Yeah. And then they'll pitch in. So earn the dollar. Like that. And that goes from all levels.
Did it get easier? So you're talking about the emails. Has that, I mean, obviously you're getting more people every time you're doing this. It seems right. Is the trust building as you've been going along? Have you noticed that the trust is getting a little bit better?
I think that it definitely helps. After Death Jaguar is successfully funded, everyone gets their toys in the mail. It's like, okay, this is a proven thing. This happened. Yeah. And that's when I was just Rocom. I was just an artist making a toy. And so after I built a website for those toys to live on, and then going past that I'm like, okay, what's my next toy? Like, then it was rocomtoys.com. I'm like, okay, this is a thing. Yeah. Like, what's my next toy? We have He-Man, what's going to be Transformers or whatever. Yeah. And so, I realized at that point, I always have more characters or things I want to create, but I realized how much community can really build the brand up. So my friend Tom has been making this indie comic called Henry and Glenn Forever for the longest time. And it's a kind of a comedy, like indie zine comic about Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig as like a couple, like living together as like partners. And so, people love the comic and it has this huge underground following. and he really liked the Death Jaguar toy I had done. So he's like, hey, what if we do these anime robot versions of Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig? So we did this like Tetsujin Gigantor, version of Henry Rollins, and then we did the Astro Boy Glenn Danzig. And so for that, it was such a departure, kind of like it still had the Japanese robot vibe I had before, but now we have like this indie punk rock vibe in. We have this very celebrated indie comic artist and writer involved, where it's not my design. I'm just a toy producer now. Whereas he is coming with the art and stuff. So it was his turnarounds. It was me kind of just guiding, like, hey, maybe we should bulk up the arms here, whatever, for like toy purposes. But this was bringing my friend's kind of creation to life. So that Kickstarter needed, I think, 15,000 maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 12,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think it got up to like 26,000 or something.
That's great.
And so, that's like double from before.
Yeah.
And I realized like now it's not just me and kind of making up a character and hoping people like it. Now it's like a dude with a built-in audience, and then me kind of coming together to build this thing. And the one after that, I worked with an artist called Alex Pardee, and Alex has done, he's done artwork for Aesop Rock for a bunch of album covers. I think he did some Def Jux stuff back in the day. So Alex and I are really great friends. He moved out to LA maybe 3 years ago, 3 or 4. And we've always known each other around Comic-Con scenes, just like conventions and such. But after he moved here, we really started hanging out and realizing, we have all similar interests, and like, we just love all the same things. So it's funny because the toy thing didn't come up really with him, because he's worked with Kid Robot, he's worked with all these big brands. But what I realized was these were all big companies that were doing what they wanted to do with his art, instead of him just being like, hey, I want to make this a toy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was great, because we got to take one of his art pieces that he loves, that I love, and we made it into a toy. It was called Future Me. And so that had just dropped, maybe this past year. And that one I think got to $30,000. And we needed, I think, the same, like 15,000 or something.
Wow.
So a little bit more of a jump. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have my 5 topic points, but I run off. But,
yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. So it had been, Death Jaguar, then working with these 2 separate artists. And then my 4th project, I'm like, okay, I really want to come back to what do I want? Like, what's my next toy, because I made these 2 things come to life for my friends, but I really wanted to focus back on like, let me extend a line, let me create something new for my own, creativity. And so that's where Mighty Maniacs came in. And it's funny because this toy stuff gets so particular and involved, and I don't know how deep to dive into that stuff. But one of the points of Kickstarters is your audience, and like who's gonna care about the thing you're putting out, whether it's a comic book or toy or whatever. Who are you speaking to? Because if they don't exist, then those dollars aren't going to come in from anywhere. So there's a type of toy called Glyos, and Glyos is it's like a joint style. So what Glyos is this guy named Matt Dowdy. He lives in the New England area. He created a joint where he wanted something where, let's say you start a toy company, Blueprint, you have your toys, I have mine, and we all have this Glyos joint on it. Essentially, if people buy my stuff and your stuff, they can pull those arms and legs off in pieces and join them together because they all have the same joint style. So it's kind of like Legos, but across different brands. So there's already 13 or so creators that use these joints through Matt. Like, it's a patented thing that he does, but it has this big underground indie audience of collectors that buy Glyos toys.
Wow.
So there's a great YouTube video by Craftsman, and he breaks down Glyos really well. If anyone wants to kind of dive deeper into that. But this audience was there. I reached out to Matt and I said, hey, vinyl toys are really expensive, you know, even after making them. Are you still there, Blueprint?
Yeah, I'm there. My bad. My camera's on some bullshit.
Oh, okay, no worries. I just want to.
I'm swapping it out.
I
Keep
figured
going.
that's all it was. Let me get my train of thought back. So I met Matt at a convention called DesignerCon, which is kind of like this premier designer toy convention.
Mm-hmm.
So I meet Matt, and he's the guy that patented the Glyos joint. And what I had wanted to do was make smaller toys, because Glyos stuff is like 2 inches, 3 inches tall. I've been making these like 9-inch figures that cost hundreds of dollars to purchase. Like, you know, Death Jaguar's like $80 to $100. Like the Henry and Glenn toys were like $250 because it's a set of 2 toys, and people can't just roll up and drop that money on this stuff. So I wanted to make a lower price point figure that could reach more people. You know, if you have $20 in your pocket, you could walk away with something. So I talked to Matt, we hit it off, and now, you know, he's like, sure, show me your ideas, you know. And this was a big deal because for me and in general, because Glyos, they don't have that many creators using their joint system. It's very much like a club of people that they keep very not isolated, but insulated, I guess, to where they have to vet you, you know, like if they feel your vibe, or if they feel like you'll be a good fit, or they can trust you'll follow through, then they'll usually let you go through and make something with the joint system. So now that I had the okay, like he's like, yeah, you know, show me what you got, and then we could maybe make something. I decided that like Glyos has all these robots and aliens, and I really wanted to do something horror based, because there weren't very many monsters and like horror type figures that use Glyos joints. So I started working on the toy line, and so that's what Mighty Maniacs became. It's something that was just this whole world where I wanted to essentially create my Ninja Turtles or my own He-Man, where there's all these characters in the cast, and it was the biggest endeavor I could have done, because it's not just like, oh, here's Evil Jet Jaguar, you know?
Yeah.
There's a hero, Johnny Tombstone. There's the bad guy, Fireface. There's a creature from the Black Lagoon type called Fish Stick, you know? There's like a big character, and it was.
There's a video game too, right? Isn't there? Yeah. So you have a whole a good guy, a bad guy, a whole kind of like a universe,
right?
And it comes with the video game where people can actually play with those characters, right?
That was the craziest element of it. So that actually stems from one of the points for Kickstarters that I want people to think about, is to create digital items. You know, when people create a Kickstarter, they think of like, here's my button pack, here's the stickers, here's the pins, like here's the hat. Like they do these different tiers, when it's like, what did you want to make in the beginning? You wanted to make a toy, you wanted to make a record or something, right? Yeah. So every time you create these subcategories of hats, t-shirts, you're going to have to spend money to make all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times it's freebies that are thrown into the package. So what I realized is, like, you're trying to raise a budget to make this one thing, whether it's the hardbound book, you know, an anthology or a movie, whatever it is. Yeah. Since that's what you're communicating and that's what you are trying to get made, that's what people actually want. When it comes to the bumper stickers and these other things, they're fun perks that definitely make a package a little bit juicier. But if those weren't there, people are still going to support you. That's real. So what I realized is, like, how can you give people more things without it affecting your budget? And so that's with digital items. So I realized a PDF, an MP3 file, a video game, these are all things you don't have to ship out. They're things you don't have to pay more to create. They're items that people will like, and they're free for you to send out. So I like to use digital items when I create my tiers. I'll sometimes do physical items if they are easy enough to make, but I realize that's a big help in that you can give people something that's kind of impactful, PDFs, that may sound boring, but sometimes if it's a design document with sketches and like good artwork, people will want to look at that. I think the one I did for Death Jaguar, I built a full like 20-page coloring book where I'm like, hey, it doesn't cost me anything to sit there and draw. So I'm going to do 20 pages of coloring pages that people could print out at home and sit and color,
Yeah. And it tells the story as well, which further connects them to the project.
To the property, right. Yeah. And the video game for this one, I can't make video games. I don't know how to do that. Like, I already said that I fell out of the computer engineering thing. But that was something where a friend reached out and he's like, hey, me and my buddy, we've been getting into this. And he showed me a game where he showed me this like Contra looking side scroller type thing. I'm like, this looks great. I was like, what does it have to do with me? And he's like, well, what if we took Death Jaguar and we made him a video game? I was like, that would be cool. I was like, but I'm working on this other thing, Mighty Maniacs, and I think it would be good for video games. Yeah. Because 80s, 90s side scrollers is a big influence on the toys themselves. So he said, dude, that sounds great. Let's start it out. And in the end, that's what we got is it's this single level of Contra style gameplay. Yeah. But it's with Johnny Tombstone, it's with like these graveyard backgrounds in this horror setting. And it was great because like them working on that, I did what I could do, which was create the sprites, which is the pixel artwork of the characters, like background elements and images. And so I did that as much as I could while they focused on the environments and coding. Yeah. But in the end, I got this exe file that at the end of the campaign, I could promise people, hey, you'll have a video game to play, That's
amazing. So how long for this process, how long did it take? Because like you've got multiple characters, you've got a whole world, you've got a Kickstarter campaign, you've got a video game being developed,
right? And sculpting
of all of that separately, right?
Right.
How long from start to end do you think this latest endeavor was?
It was just shy of a year, which is insane. So it was November that it was a November where I got the okay from the Glios creator to be like, hey, show me what you got. Okay. So I go home, and over December, January, I'm sitting there sketching ideas, thinking of different toy lines. I lock one in, show it to him. He's totally into it. Then I start developing the sculpts. And then for the next, 10, 11 months, it was building everything. It was building the video game, making sure all the sculpts were right, figuring out colorways and different things. And so of all the years for me to be focused on doing this, it was 2020.
It's a perfect year.
We get hit with the pandemic and I'm not supposed to leave the house. So I had the literal thing that I should be focused on and doing. And that's the only reason it came through so quickly.
So were you blown away by the support on Kickstarter for this one? Were you surprised at all, or were you just like, I expected it?
It was insane because the reason is, a vinyl toy costs a lot of money. It's like $100, $150. But because of that, you don't need as many people to buy into it. My new thing I'm doing, these are $15 to $20 items. You have to sell so many more to get to your $25,000, goal. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, I made up this thing. It has no clout. Like, people don't know about it. It's not attached to any artist that has a big following. It's just me. On Instagram, I have 2,000 people following me. Like, even that is made up of a lot of friends. Like, it's not an audience that I can just expect to show up. Yeah. But what I did have was I had Glios. I had this weird joint that I'm using for all the toys that has a built-in audience. So it'd be like if I made Legos and I made a special Lego set, like everyone has Legos, so you can count on people buying those. So I think the Glios community really came through, and they're a main reason why it did well. Okay. Because they were pretty much in from the get-go. Like, they could have hated it. I could have showed my designs and they'd be like, not into. So luckily they did like it. But that goes into one of my points, which is market before you launch. It's about knowing what audience would probably dig your stuff and diving into any place you can to connect with them. So whether that's Facebook pages that you join so you could kind of communicate with people, share your love of an interest, Instagram pages, connecting with, with Instagram pages, it's about like, okay, who are the vintage toy pages that everyone follows and they watch this stuff. So I'd be DMing these people that own these juggernaut accounts of like 80s toys or different things that would connect with what I'm making. And so you build these little friendships and you just let people know, hey, this is what I'm working on. Like when I drop this, can you help me get the word out?
Yeah.
And there's blogs, there's people that, there's websites that you always read, but you never think there's editors and publishers for all those sites. Find their Twitter, find their email addresses, just send them a line just to be like, this is what I'm doing. If you're interested, I'd love for you to share it,
Yeah.
And that's all before launch. Like, so as you build this laundry list of like, all right, I'm not going to be a lone voice and letting people know what I want to get made. It's going to get spread through all these other megaphones. So that market before you launch it's super important so that you're not the guy that is constantly bothering his family and friends. So check out the page. I will say this though, they'll show up. Your family and friends are the first ones that'll be there to buy your shit. So a lot of Kickstarters, that is how it goes. If a stranger likes it, that's amazing. And you're very lucky when that happens. But for most Kickstarters, it really is the people that like love you and care about, your creativity. But it's possible, if you can reach those megaphones, those like social media outlets, those websites, you put in that work to just see, even if you send out 10 emails, if 2 of those people are going to talk about your stuff, it's a win. Because it's more than what you had by yourself,
Yeah. So like when you're doing all of these different launches, at what point did you kind of decide, okay, there needs to be a Rocom Toys, and this is actually something that is actually the natural progression of what I'm doing?
Right. I think as a brand, as a name, Rocom Toys, that was just built I have these Death Jaguar Safubi and I have these soft vinyl toys. They need to live somewhere. So it was mainly building a .com. So the fact that was there, I don't think the true vision of it really came until Alex Pardee's toy joined kind of this gamut of all these figures. Where it really feels like, okay, this is a collection of toys. So, and then Mighty Maniacs honestly really elevates all of that to being, now you have a line of mini figures, you have these robot figures, you have Alex's kind of grim looking horror type figure, to where it really feels more like this is a brand now. So it came slowly,
Are you also like, so you do Kickstarter campaigns, and I imagine I haven't done one, but I'm imagining at the end of this, you have a list of people who Definity have spent money on your product.
Right.
And much more than the average consumer typically would, because like they're early adopters and typically it's not cheap. You know what I mean? Like it's like, cause it's smaller quantities. At the end of this, you starting your toy line, have you basically looked at it like, look, I've run 3 or 4 campaigns, been successful. Now I have a database email list of people who I 100% know actually already supported me already.
Right.
Has that really kind of hit you? Like I kind of got a big thing here.
Right. It's funny because like I'm the worst about keeping the train going in a sense of like, I get the thing made, I accomplish it, ship stuff out to everyone. And in terms of like utilizing that database to keep pushing stuff, I don't even know that's a sure thing, because Instagram, Facebook, you don't know if people are going to see any of that.
Right.
But people will get an email, whether they delete it or not, they'll get the email.
Right. So
those lists are pretty crucial. I haven't pushed too much of it, but I'll probably have to once Mighty Maniacs comes in, because just that world of figures is going to be so collectible that I think people are going to want to know when new drops happen. And I'm excited for it because it's unlike anything I've ever done before or that I thought that I could do. That campaign blew up so big that I only wanted 2 figure molds made. It was a monster mold with 3 heads you can choose within the figure, and there was a hero mold that had 3 heads you can choose from. It was this Johnny Tombstone, a ninja head, and then like a motorcycle helmet type head. That's all I wanted to create. I'm like, okay, with these you can create 6 characters, but it's just 2 molds. It's 2 body styles with 3 heads each. In the end, after unlocking so many things, getting to $80,000, I have 5 unique molds now, where it's like there's one that's like a double dragon style, like street brawler. There's one that's a horror slasher, like a Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. And then the last one we unlocked was a robot. That's very much like Macross, Robotech, like, Gundam type feel. And so now having the fact that this Kickstarter is launching 5 unique sculpts is insane. Like, I pretty much built He-Man in, a month or whatever, which was the goal. Like, I really wanted to have this IP and property where it's like, I love Ninja Turtles, all that shit. It's like, and you don't see it anymore. I don't know the last time I saw like a cartoon for that age group that has that kind of creativity and adventure, and everything's geared towards adults. Rick and Morty, Big Mouth, like these are rad cartoons, but they're aged up and they don't have that like that fantasy element, to it. So honestly, that's actually the next step, is a cartoon. How do we make Mighty Maniacs an animated feature? Not feature, but an animated series that would live on Netflix or Nickelodeon or something. So that's the next intimidating thing I'm gonna try and tackle, where it's a thing like, who can have their own cartoon? It's like, you don't know until you try. So,
right. I mean, you never thought you'd have your own toy,
Exactly,
Who would have thunk it?
Totally. So I'm really excited for that. I'm building that. I have meetings with a producer like twice a week to try and figure out the scope of the season and the world and characters. So as toys, all you have to do is make them look cool, right? But now it's funny because I have a cast of characters and I'm like, why do they exist? How do they communicate with each other? So,
need some tension and conflict.
Right. Yep. And diving into the stories, it's really fun. So
that's awesome. I want to for everybody who's watching this on YouTube, we're gonna have Rocom kind of show us some of the toys in his collection, because I think that will really kind of help hit this home. So if you're just listening to the audio version of the show, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Super Duty Tough Work, and then we'll have him break down some of what he's doing, so you can kind of put a visual with the conversation. It'll kind of help you see what we're doing.
It's funny because these are all like resin printed prototypes I have. So what's great about this figure line is that they use Glyos joints. So this is made of resin, so it's not plastic, but all the parts can be swapped and interchanged.
That's dope.
Depending on so what you're looking at here is the soldier torso, but with the beast arms.
Okay.
With the beast head. So like it's
so you can interchange the arms and the head.
Right. So like if we were to remove the wolf head, you can grab. Actually, I made a Death Jaguar head that you can put in there, and then you can kind of put that in. There's so of the monsters, there's a wolf one, there's an ape character, and then there's like a fish, kind of like a sea creature type. And I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. I got a 3D printer recently, like when I started developing this line, and it's been such a game changer to be able to change the 3D of the toy and test it immediately by printing it. So everything I'm showing you, I printed at home, which is insane.
That's awesome.
Because I never knew that would be possible. So like,
so that's kind of changes the whole process. So you get to test stuff out before you have to get the mold. Yeah, that's really sick.
Right. So like that's the ape head. I wish it would focus on that. But and then the newest one, which is these robots we designed, are super fun. And so that's what's cool is like you have this monster figure, and then you buy the head fell off. Oh no, the arm fell off. So like, so with this robot figure,
that's dope. Really
what's
dope.
great is now that you have these parts, you can, take the robot head out, and you can have like essentially like a wolf and like a mech costume type thing. So by being able to do this Lego type play where you can switch out stuff, it creates this just endless kind of character combination type things. So I'm excited to see after people get these toys, like the different things they're going to build out of it.
Because that's a whole community in and of itself. It could be of people creating their own characters out of the toys.
And then sharing that. So I would love to develop a part of the website one day where you can drag and drop parts from the toys into a template and kind of see the different possibilities digitally. I think that would be really fun. For the brawlers, there's a great head we sculpted for it. They're all kind of homages to 80s characters and stuff. So I'm a big fan of this Mr. T one.
Yeah, I was about to say, he looks just like Mr. T.
Yeah, it's not Mr. T though.
I know. It looks. He's got the Mr. T mohawk. Yeah.
So it's been really fun. Like I can't. We just finished the molds for the Monster and Soldier.
Okay.
The rest are still being made, but I should be seeing a test pull soon, which is after the metal mold is made, they pour the PVC and see what the toy is going to look like for the first time ever. So, it'll be the first time seeing my figure as plastic. So I'm super excited for that.
So is it too late for people to support and order?
It is just for the Kickstarter line, but once I get them and actually have the production run, I definitely over ordered certain figures to where
people can order
you can
from
still get in on the old stuff. Yeah.
Okay. That's dope.
But currently it's a waiting game with COVID, with any delays and stuff. But I think I'm still on track for summer. So
okay, that's dope. Summer
of 2021 is when I hope to have everything.
That's really awesome. Really awesome.
I don't know if there's anything else to show.
Okay.
Of the slashers, there's like a hockey mask head, which almost feels also like Lord Humongous, like Mad Max style.
Wow, that's head. Dope. Love the jacket design.
Yeah. So that was it's interesting choosing a certain design for the torso or arms, because you think about, all right, can we reuse this in a different color? What's it going to look like? So it's interesting. There's a balance between less and more. Like keep the details low so that when you switch the colors on something, it feels like a jumpsuit, a leather jacket. Like you can change the vibe of it. Because if you put in all the details of a leather jacket, zippers and buttons and all that, you've kept it in its lane. Whereas if you strip away some of that, it can play in different areas.
That's awesome, man.
Those are the weird things that come to mind when you want a mold to count. I don't know if you remember He-Man toys. We'd get a merman, right? But then you get a Stinkor, which is the same toy painted black.
Yes, it's so true. He was. I always thought they cheated on that. I'm like, this is the same guy.
Yeah. Or Beastman and Mossman. Mossman, the same mold. It's totally that same thinking where it's like, we paid for the mold. How are we going to get another character out of this?
Like pay for it twice, like the Spider-Man and the evil version of every hero. Basically.
right. Yeah, but He-Man had Faker. It was just the blue He-Man.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to read back these lessons that you were talking about, and let me know. One of the first lessons from Kickstarter is earn $1.
Right.
Meaning, be very clear about the value that you're providing, right? And very clear about exactly what you're doing, so people don't get confused, and they'll be more likely to pick it up. And that counts for the videos you were creating,
right? It's also trust. It's mainly how are people going to trust you with their money? Because you're asking people for their money, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. And then the other one you had was create digital items.
Yes.
Which is important. And that really hits me because, I sell books, CDs,
Yeah, you do package items,
album, physical product. But I have been wanting to pivot towards more digital product for that exact reason. And that, like you said, it's easier to reproduce. There's no charge to re-up. Whereas if I sell 100 T-shirts, I got to pay to buy another 100.
Yep.
to make money.
And you have the sizes to deal with, you know.
Yeah.
The whole, that's why hats and pins and like, I love merchandise like that because you can easily produce it, but you're not worried about stock of I ran out of smalls, like,
Yes.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
because that's always the game with clothing, with t-shirts. So
yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Then you had market before you watch was another one. Before you launch, I'm sorry.
Before you launch, yeah. Market before you launch.
So that's for what people who are like they think they can just put the Kickstarter up today.
Right. It's to make sure you're not bugging all your family and friends instead of like having legitimate, you know, social media accounts or websites possibly backing you, you know. And within your friends and family, you could even reach out to them and ask, do you know of people at different magazines or online sites that are doing this kind of thing that you're making, you know?
Yeah.
All that research is super important. The other two items I guess I didn't bring up. One is focus on your product, which really refers to a Kickstarter in general. It's about don't stray from the goal. So like, you know, when I first did Death Jaguar, I was like, oh, a screen printed poster would be so dope, right?
Yeah.
Like it would be so cool to have. But in the end, it was distracting from what I'm doing. It's like, it's the toy. It's about that. So it's like, you know, it's fun to branch off and make other cool things, but the more it distracts from your goal, it's okay to cut that stuff out. Like you can revisit that later, you know?
Yeah.
So focusing on the goal product, I think is really important, and make that the backbone of the reward tiers. You know, it's almost any reward tier that pays more money. Your main thing has to come with that.
Yes.
You know, just having a screen printed poster for $20, like I can do that, but now I'm creating a sub project where I have to pay to get these posters made. I sold those. None of that money is helping the toy.
Right.
So focus on your product is important. And then the other one I didn't bring up is budget everything. Okay. So you can have a goal of like a toy costs $9,000 to make to get a mold made. That's fine. That's your goal. But if you look at paying a sculptor, you look at all the bubble packaging material you're going to need to buy after to ship all of it. The actual shipping costs, like to send stuff out. There's so many hidden costs that you really have to remind yourself of, where your budget of getting a mold made for $8,000 or $9,000, that now is up to like 14 grand if you're really looking at what you've put in and what you're making. If you're financially okay to cover that little bit of padding, that's fine. But to really make sure you're not hurting yourself, it's good. You have to budget all of it, you know. Really think of A to B. After the stuff is shipped to your house, you're packing up, you're buying tape to do it, figuring the cost of the tape. Like, and there's so many things you need to just make sure it's packed in.
It's true.
And on top of that, Kickstarter will take about 10% of what you're making. So knowing that you're going to get a hit, like I raised $79,000, but in my bank, I got 71.
Right. Because they took their 10% out of it.
Right. So keeping that in mind too. And also a lot of people think that I had a goal of $25,000 and I made 80. I'm pocketing, you know,
right.
50.
It's not.
It's not at all, because I essentially promised new things. I have 3 more molds I need made that weren't going to be made before. So I factor all that in. And then on top of that, all the people that bought, you have to produce all of that merchandise for them. So it's still, I'm splitting, you know, I have no profits, but I'm getting to make all these things I wanted to make, you know, without going into my own pocket. So
that's beautiful, man. Yeah. And the budgeting thing is tricky too, because I've heard of people doing Kickstarters and basically losing money because of all the extra stuff.
Right. They didn't think of. They're adding
all these promo items, not knowing how much they cost.
Yeah.
And then you're like, kills them.
Definitely. It's because and even in your head, you think of like, oh, a t-shirt, you know, a maximum, I don't know, $5, $6 max I'm adding on. But you forget that that's $6 that are eating right into your budget to take away from making your studio album or whatever you're trying to fund towards. So that's why the digital thing is so important to me. Or if you do those extras, you have to charge for it. You know, make that t-shirt $30. Like, make it whatever you need to make sure it's taken care of and it's not cutting to your overall goal.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Mad Jewels today, man.
Okay, I hope so. I hope people like sticking to it, you know. And I'm excited to see any Kickstarters that happen because of this, you know. Cool.
So where can people find you on social media? Where should they be following you at?
So my social media on Instagram and Twitter is just Rocom. It's ROCOM.
Okay.
Rocom Toys has its own Instagram focused on toys.
Yep.
I guess I shouldn't really push my personal Instagram.
Not unless
You're
you
just
want
gonna see me being a clown.
Yeah.
But Rocom Toys, but then also Mighty Maniacs has its own Instagram where that's the first time I had to split the brand in a sense of Mighty Maniacs, since it's a smaller scale, it's its own world. I really built its own Instagram account. So Mighty Maniacs, but Maniacs is spelled MANIAX.
Okay.
That's kind of like the trick spelling of it. But I wanted it all separated so people that like that world can dive into that, and it all lives on there. So it's almost like having Mattel. And Mattel, it might share some He-Man stuff, but if you go to a He-Man page, it'll be all He-Man content. So it's the first time I actually had to create, sub-branding, which is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, and it looks like you're going to be doing a cartoon for that as well. So
right. To have that separate IP.
Yeah. Perfect.
I hope, man. That's the dream. I hope I can make a cartoon.
Hey, if the cartoon comes out, maybe we'll do a follow-up or something to get people to go check it out or do whatever they can. Really great, yeah. Just keep me posted. I'll do what I can to support, I
appreciate it. Thanks for having me on this too. It's really nice to talk about all this stuff. Because, I mean, with quarantine, I'm doing all this stuff and keeping it to myself, like in my little world. So
this nice podcast is kind of how I have weekly conversations that I otherwise wouldn't have had. Because like you're saying, I'm not seeing people in public like that. So
the only time I think we get to talk is if you are coming through town or something. I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna stop by or whatever,
Yeah,
so
man.
It's nice.
Well, hell yeah. Well, thank you, man. Thanks for joining us today, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
So everybody at home, Rocom Toys, check him out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, support this man. He does really, really dope work. And if you are in a creative field, visual art, whatever, I hope you got something out of this interview. And, we shall see y'all next week. And
Thank you for listening to Super Duty Tough Work. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Follow the podcast on SoundCloud. Peace.
Shoot, I got styles already that's more complex that nobody know about. I mean, Super Duty Tough Work.
Collection, and it's not just a toy, it's also a video game. Travel through graveyards and the haunted forest to take down enemies in an all-new retro side-scrolling shoot-'em-up featuring